talk about when you first got into this industry. When I ran into you, you had actually been doing franchises. You own other businesses. Your wife's super successful, but you had some stuff going on. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what you had going on, why you transitioned out of what you were doing into this industry?
Yeah. So back then, mid '09. So I actually got started right at the very beginning of 2010. But in 2008 through 2000, obviously we had the mortgage meltdown and all that kind of stuff. So like a lot of people, even though we were making good money, and we're all affected with the economy. We were making pretty good money, but I just did not. I was at a very high, had a lot of high stress levels because of some health issues I had gone through. I was good at the business. I was actually starting to get pretty good at the business I was in, but I despised it. I did not like it. I did not. I was traveling constantly. I was away from my 3 daughters, they were kids at the time, and that was 14 years ago. And I just wasn't in a good space, man. I wasn't happy. And so when I found your opportunity, we talked, was just the right. I wasn't necessarily looking, but it was just the right time at the right place.
So, I mean, but again, I mean, you had success in the past. So a lot of people correlate money and success together. They do a correlation together. You know what I mean? Like that's how they correlate whether or not they're successful, just purely off money. You had money, but it wasn't exactly the lifestyle that you wanted to.
I had no time.
Yeah, so you had no time.
Yeah.
You had no time. You weren't spending any time with your children. But then it was also causing you health issues,
Absolutely.
which, listen, money can resolve a lot of issues. Health is important. Yeah. When you saw this business for the first time, what was kind of your take on it? Like, what did you see? What was the triggers that kind of helped you out, that liking this business?
So when I talked to you, you gave me kind of an initial, literally a 20-minute overview. You got my interest peaked enough where I was going to jump in my car and drive 4 hours to go meet you, a couple of days following that. So the biggest thing that I saw, I came from a world, so in the franchises that we saw. So by the way, I also owned a restaurant in Memphis for 3 years. Yeah. And so I was familiar with the food service industry. And then when I was in the franchise development, all of those businesses operated on a tiny margin, meaning you might have to do $1 million in sales to generate $50,000 in income. And that's working 6-7 days, 6.5 days a week, and which is the time problem again. So I didn't want to jump in some other frying pan. I didn't want to go back to the restaurant business. I didn't want to continue doing what I was doing at the time. So when I saw that the margins in this business, in the insurance business, and not only that, to be able to go make a sale, right, and make significant money right away in a couple of days, because that's the world we live in, right? Make a sale, get paid a few days later. But then a year later, nothing crazy, but just this tiny little renewal, right? Every time I made a sale, but more importantly, every time anybody in my organization made a sale, I got a tiny little piece of it. And I think that's what I was always ultimately, even if I didn't know that's what I was looking for, I was ultimately subconsciously looking for, to make a small percentage of a very large number.
Dude, I remember 2010 when we talked the first time. I mean, that was your trigger point, was being able to go out and build a business that had trails to it. And honestly, when I ran into this business, I didn't understand that at first, because I'd been just going out, making a sell, making money, making a sell, making money. I didn't realize that there was an industry where you had trail coming off of it, where it will sustain year after year after year. And so, I mean,
what was funny is that I came from the world, so franchise development, people purchase businesses. You bought a franchise. I actually had my checkbook in my back pocket when we met that day in Baton Rouge, because I was like, I'm in.
I should have asked you for a big check. That's what I should have done.
Because I was prepared to write the check, because I had never, again, I was ignorant. I didn't know anything about the business and the how it all worked. And I was sold. I was like,
Yeah.
Man, Jerrod, how much? I'm ready. What's it cost? He goes, well, no, there's no cost. You do have to get a license. I was like, oh, no, here we go. I got to go take a test. So like you, I mean, I was lucky. I squeaked by the first time, which is fine. And but that was it. That was so exciting to me. So that was the other part. So the margins, the trails, the renewals, all that stuff was great. But understanding that I could help other people do that as well, that was just a very big deal, you know, because I like, you know, again, our success is helping other people make money.
One of your business was developing a franchise, and you know, we don't talk about this much, but this is interesting. One of your business was developing a franchise that actually had storefronts.
Yes.
And so I think this is a good topic to actually discuss, because I think that people misunderstand how long building your own business can take in most worlds. So if somebody walked into your system that you used to run and they would buy a franchise from you, you would help them go select a site. Then there was a build out process and kind of from a start to finish. What was the build out process, training process, up and running process before they hit the ground minute one?
So to get up and go, it was about a 9-month thing.
So 9 months. So
nine
so a
months
year.
is average.
So a year.
Here's what was not good. So when I sold a franchise, I made a nice chunk of money up front.
Yeah.
But then that was it. I got paid once, but I was on the hook to service that franchisee through the next umpteen years, right? I was their point of contact, but I didn't get paid for it. You know what I mean? So like, there's not a lot of motivation. I mean, it's not like I got a bonus if they did really well.
Yeah.
If they went out of business, or maybe they buy another franchise from me. I guess that was the only thing they were holding over my head. If they're successful, they may want to buy another one in another location.
Yeah, a second one. Yeah.
But so I got paid once, but I didn't get paid again from that person ever again, typically, and that was frustrating because they demanded so much of my time.
Well, it's interesting because I'm sitting there thinking about 9 months to a year, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's how long it took them to make $1.
Yes.
And that's if they weren't really making $1. They were recouping some of their initial money. Like, what's the initial overhead? Because usually in a franchise, you have to have so much liquid, and then you got to get a loan. And what is the usual overhead for something like that? It was a tax franchise.
Yeah, it was taxes, check out all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
like an H&R Block style franchise.
Exactly. So it wasn't like it was a McDonald's where it was millions of dollars or something like that. But
what was it?
So the franchise fee would be anywhere between $30,000 to $90,000, depending on the size.
Okay.
We would have to help them with the lease, and typically those leases are 3 to 5 years.
Sure.
They have to then build out, offices, staff, computers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The biggest headache was staffing. You got to hire all those people and all the overhead.
Yeah.
And then, much like my businesses previous, like when I was in the restaurant business, as the owner operator, you're there
all day,
all the time. There were nights I slept there.
So could you?
In my own, because I was required to own 2 myself as
being the developer.
Yeah.
So would it be realistic to say short side $150,000 to $200,000 for the initial fee?
For that business, I would say $2 to $220.
$2 to $220. Okay, and then so they're not going to pay that off for some time, for several years, probably 3 to 5 years.
3
right?
years was the average to break even.
Which listen, that's pretty common for most industries and franchises. Mm-hmm. That was the part when I first ran into this business back in 2008, 9, and I say 8, 9 because I failed my license because I didn't study very well for the first 3. But it happens. And then, but that was the part that was interesting to me, is because I wanted to get into business for myself. I got that license after the multiple times of paying for the license. I went out and dialed, and within my first 30 days, I was even. I was flush. I was actually making money at that point. And so it's always surprising to me, like if you polled everybody I think if you polled, listen, I shouldn't say everybody. If you polled 50% or polled 1,000 people, I would say 50% of those 1,000 people, if you polled 1,000 people, I would say 50% of those 1,000 people would, if you asked them the question, would you like to own your own business and work for yourself? The answer is inevitably going to be Yes. And it might even be a higher percentage than 50%, but let's just shoot it very conservative. The question, though, that should be followed up with that, are you willing to put X amount of work in for the next 6, 8, 12 months, 3 years to recoup that money? And most people would say no. So here's the thing. Then you come back to our business where all you have to invest into initially is a license, which let's shoot it high and say it costs you $350, right? And then time. And that's the thing is, I mean, my first day dialing was the day I got my license, and I dialed for 8 hours. I booked one appointment, but my first sell, which I knew nothing about, ended up making $1,000 off it. So all my initial investment was recouped in my first sell, right? People don't understand how good of a deal that is for being fully self-employed in the insurance financial services industry. Yep. I mean, where you just got done saying a franchise, when you sold those tax franchises, $200,000 to $220,000 was the initial investment, and 3 years was the average turn to even cut even. To me, that's what's so fantastic about this industry. And then I also think about the fact that, like, you listen, people are going to Google and they're going to go, well, you got to buy leads. No, you don't. You don't have to buy leads. Correct. Up until the 90s, they were still doing debit insurance where they were going door to door. So leads are a luxury to make it a step easier, but they're not a necessity, right? I think that's a great way to put it. Absolutely. And I also think what people underestimate is a lead is just a name and number to get someone on the phone. And if they answer the phone, that lead has been successful. If they don't answer that phone, that lead has not been successful, right? And so, and you used to pay the franchising industry, what, $20,000 a lead? A lead.
No. Not 20,000 much, but
not that
we
much.
So my bill for my leads would be $20,000.
$20,000 for your bill.
So you know what the average lead cost me?
What?
$927, and that is for somebody, because we advertised on the radio back then.
Yeah.
It was AM sports shows. That's where all of our franchisees came from. And if you heard a commercial while you're driving to work and were interested, you called in and left a voicemail, that was now my lead. I had paid on an average $927 for that.
$927, and then
and you might not even answer the phone. So people are griping about not answering a $40 lead.
Well, that's the thing is I'm going like, and you don't even need leads.
No,
that's the thing. You don't need them. Like there is 50% plus of the people in the United States need more life insurance. You don't even need leads. We get so fascinated by that lead. And listen, are leads in general a good resource? Absolutely, but they're not a necessity. No. And that's the thing. We really it's you got the money or time balance, right? Like, which do you have more of, money or time? If you got more time and you're a little bit poor at this point, spend more time developing people to talk to. If you got more money, buy people to talk to. Absolutely. But don't think you have to do one or the other. It's open. But I remember that's the one thing. Anytime I've seen an industry and listen, man, I get pitched on doing just about anything these days, right? Like, you get successful in an industry, that about everybody and their mama's coming to you asking you to invest into something nowadays, right? And so I got investments into all kinds of things. Still to this day, nothing drives the revenue stream that this industry drives for me. And I mean, I got a lot of money into some big things, and it could be 10 years before they pay out. In that 10-year time frame, I can make 10, 12, 15 times that much money I invested in this industry alone. You know what I mean? So I think people underestimate the value proposition that the insurance and financial, the financial services industry has. And there's a reason why there's more millionaires created in this industry than any other industry in the world. So,
and I think that, people ask me all the time, hey, what do you like to invest in? I said, honestly, there's two things. I like to invest. So I think Warren Buffett said one time, you invest in stuff that you understand. That's why he's not in cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't understand it.
Me neither.
And so, he goes, it wasn't him, but I said, I think, I have no control. Like, I can't control what what goes on in Washington D.C. and all that. I can't control it. So, but what I can control two things: myself and my business.
Yeah.
The impact. So that's where I invest. I invest in self-development, and I invest money back into this business because I understand it now.
Yeah.
And I'm no rocket scientist. I was telling people the other day, I was doing a quick conference call with some new people. I said, look, I'm not good at much, but I'm pretty decent at this business. And that's what I like to invest in. So if it's maybe investing in a new website or if I'm in leads or whatever it might be, I'm going to invest in that because I know the rate of return over the last 14 years of what that's done in my business. So I think that's something that, and I tell people all the time, so you want to build this business, take 10, 15% of what you're bringing in and just reinvest it.
Yeah.
This is business income that's coming in. It's not, I got $1,000, I'm going to run to the mall and spend it all.
Yeah.
So people have to think like this is a business.
Okay. So one last question.
Yep.
Both of us are going to answer this
Sure.
right now. Okay. If there's somebody coming in right now, brand new, somebody looking at the industry, somebody already in this industry and just not making good moves, give them a 30-second explanation of what you think they should be doing right now that maybe they're not doing.
Number one is I think there's a great book written on this. I think it's Ryan Holiday's book, but your ego gets in the way. Just because I was good at franchise development and franchise sales back in the day doesn't translate on my instant success here.
Yeah.
Please humble yourself and ask questions. Find somebody that's got success, that's been doing this a while, and just ask questions and be willing to learn. That's the number one thing I think people, and that's a big reason a lot of people quit and get out of the business right away. But it's not that it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The question is, does it work? Well, yeah, it works. It's insurance. It's the second biggest industry in America. But does it work for me? Well, big shot. Humble yourself. Ask some questions. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing.
Yeah, and the only part I'll add on to that, because I think that's probably the one thing a lot of people, when you're starting a business, you want to ask questions. You want to make sure you're getting fed.
Yes.
Because the quicker you can get it, listen, the world is driven on information, right? The more information you can capture, gain, cheat your way legally, ethically, cheat your way to that information, right? It's no different. It's no different than like being an insider trader in a legal fashion. Like you want to get information out of people. But the only thing I would add to that is understand that the world of business in general spans in hours invested into that world. And so the quicker you can invest those hours into the world of your specific trade, the quicker you're going to get a success out of that. And I think sometimes we forget that pattern of going, hey, we just try to get in there as fast as possible, get a result as fast as possible. Like just go. Like don't overthink the process. And then the only other thing I would add to that is when you're thinking about this industry specific, it is an industry that is a trial and error industry.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You got to learn and roll with the punches. But if you just sit back, like I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody and they're like, hey, I'm just reading more stuff. I'm just doing more stuff. I'm watching more stuff. And then all of a sudden they go, man, I can't understand why this business doesn't work for me. Listen, let's tip. No business will work if you never start moving in it.
Action.
Yeah, you got to go. Just pick up a phone, make a dial, go to a door, knock on it. Ask a random stranger if they need life insurance. Just go because you're trying to get through the no's. And there's that book, the book that talks about 10,000 hours. Well, there's a book that talks about 10,000 hours. Like you got to to become a master in anything, you got to invest 10,000 hours into it. Well, if you're hemming and hawing, you're not investing. That's people's misunderstandings. They think by reading, watching, and listening to stuff that's becoming a master at it, but it actually isn't. That's you're just getting the directive on how to do it. Now you have to implement that action into it to start becoming that master. And there's a lot of people who think just because they know information that they're a master, but they don't. You're not a master until you actually apply information, and that is one thing I think people misunderstand a lot.
Oh, totally agree. And then it's the comfort. Well, it's uncomfortable. Congratulations. That means you're growing.
Yeah.
Get uncomfortable. How fast can I get uncomfortable? You know what I mean? And that's where you're gonna learn everything. That's why I talk about these practice appointments and stuff like that. I think it's a big deal for people just to get some experience. Don't dip your toe in the water. Run back and read an underwriting guide. Go sit with some people. Ask great questions. Get help. We're here to help you. You know, move. Let's move.
Apply. Just apply. Just move. Just go.
About moving.
Well, dude, that's when people come in and say, "I don't have as much experience as that person." I'm going, "Hey, I've met a ton of educated idiots."
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I met a ton.
Yeah.
Just because they know information doesn't mean they've applied information, and lack of application won't create anything. Yeah. You know, so you have to actually apply all that, everything you learn. So trial and error. This business, trial and error. Got to move fast.
Worst thing that will ever happen is you get told no.
That's
It'll
it.
be okay.
You will.